Hello and welcome to another episode of Cards Unbarred. My name's Ryan, and in this video I'm going to teach you the 4 to 5 player trick-taking game, the Hedgehog's Dilemma, designed by Scott King. The components in the Hedgehog's Dilemma consists of 56 playing cards, numbered 1 to 14 in 4 suits, red, blue, black, and yellow. The game also comes with 4 suit ranking cards, 1 strongest card, 1 weakest card, 1 double-sided scoring sheet pad, and 1 game board. When setting up a game for 5 players, you will use all 56 playing cards. When playing with 4 players, you will remove the 14 from all 4 suits. In this video, we'll be setting up for 4 players, so we will return the 14s back to the box. Before your first game, you'll want to locate the game board, which is actually found on the back of the box. However, there will be a promotional sheet there that you'll need to remove. The easiest way to do that is open the box completely, and then pull the promotional sheet either from the bottom or the top of the box, and then you'll see the game board is underneath. Additionally, player pieces are needed to play the game, but they do not come in the box, and each player will need some kind of game piece to act as their personal avatar. These pieces should fit comfortably in the spaces on the game board with other similar pieces and should be capable of denoting a face. In other words, it should be clear which direction the piece is facing while standing on the board. Anything like a charm, knick-knack, toy, miniature, or meeple of some kind will work, but try using something that speaks to you personally. To set up for the game, first give each player a score sheet and make sure to keep a pen or pencil nearby. Next, place the game board near the middle of the table. Then have each player introduce their player pieces and place them all in the center space facing the same direction. Next, place the strongest and weakest cards besides the game board and randomly deal the 4 suit cards in a row between them. Then shuffle the main playing card deck and deal 12 cards to each player. In a 5-player game, deal 11 cards to each player. Players may look at the cards that were dealt to them, but make sure to keep them hidden from all other players. There will be cards that are left undealt. Place those off to the side face down for now. They will not be used in this round, but they will be used in future rounds. To complete initial setup of the game board, all players will look at their hand and simultaneously discard and reveal 1 card. The number on this card is the number of spaces their player piece will move on the game board, remembering to keep the forward-facing orientation when moving through the continuous loop. No poking will occur during this movement, and poking will be explained in further detail during the trick play. And after all initial movement has been completed, players will discard those cards face down along with the undealt cards. In future rounds, players will discard a card from their hand at the beginning of the round, however they will not reveal and move their player piece like they did during initial setup. And finally, the player who's been hurt most recently will lead the first trick of the game. In future rounds, the player that won the last trick of the previous round will lead the first trick in the next round. The Hedgehog's Dilemma is a must-follow trick-taking game. What that means is the lead player can play any card they want from their hand, and all their players in clockwise order must play a card that matches that suit if possible. So we have the trained player go first. Looking at their hand, they can play anything they want, and maybe they will decide to play this 4 black. So now going in clockwise order, the Kiwi player is next. They must play a black card if they have one. It looks like they only have this one, so they must play that one. Then the Rooster is going to go, they've got the 3, the 9, and the 11, so they've got a couple options. Maybe they'll go with the 11. And lastly, the Hedgehog player has 5, 6, 8, and 13, so they've got quite a few options, and maybe they want to win the trick. So they're going to play that 13. Now, after everyone's played a card into the trick, we need to see who's won. As I mentioned, it's the Hedgehog player, because what we want to do is look to see what is the strongest number among the strongest suit. In this case, there's only 1 suit. Everyone played a black card, so the strongest number is this 13. So the Hedgehog player would win the trick. When you win a trick, you can just take all of the cards and put them in a face-down pile along with the undealt and discarded cards from earlier, and then move your player piece 1 space on the board. Now, if your piece lands on the same space as another player, a poke occurs. The player that caused the poke is known as the poker, so in this case the Hedgehog is the poker, and the player that was in that space is known as the pokey, so the Kiwi player is the pokey. Now there are 3 things that you must do in this following order during a poke. The first thing both the poker and the pokey should do is fill in the next unmarked circle in the column for the other player in their respective scoring sheets. In the rare case where players are out of circles to fill in for each other, this step is skipped. So we'd have the hedgehog player come over to the kiwi player, and they will circle in this 2 spot, and the kiwi player will do the same thing for the hedgehog. So if we can put these sheets here, put them a little lower, you can see there's now a circle filled in for each player. The second thing we need to do is have the poker take any card from their hand and give it to the pokey. So the hedgehog player will give 1 card to the kiwi. Now the kiwi will look at that card, put it into their hand, and pass any other card. They cannot pass the card they were just given, but they will pass 1 card back to the poker. After that is done, the pokey will now choose to swap 2 adjacent cards from this suit ranking area. So maybe they want to move the black and the blue, or maybe they want to do the red or the blue. The important part is they must be adjacent. You can't do 2 non-adjacent cards. This part is also optional. You do not have to swap rankings. But the first 2 steps are required. You must fill out a circle and you must exchange 1 card. You'll even exchange a card if it's the last card in your hand. So if it's the last trick of the hand, you will swap those and you'll just play the opposite cards from each other. Now, of course, if this was the last trick and you have no cards left in hand, you have nothing to swap, you would skip that step. But this third step, where you swap 2 adjacent rankings, the pokey does not have to do that. So maybe they decide there's no reason to, because they like the way the ranking currently is. Now, one thing to get into at this point is table talk. As far as what players can say during any point in the game is giving information about how well they're going to do potentially in the hand as far as being able to move around on the board. You can even talk about cards that are in your hand. Whether you're telling the truth or lying, you are allowed to say whatever you want. The only thing is you can't actively show the cards to your players. So if you have this 13 red in your hand, you can say I've got the 13 red, but you can't show it until you can legally play it in trick play by playing that card. You might want to also discuss strategies, something like how far you're going to move during the round. If you're trying to land on spaces with other players, you might want to let them know I can win 1 or 2 more tricks, which will allow me to move 1 or 2 more spaces. You can also talk when you're making your card exchange. You can ask for, I'd like a blue card, I'd like a yellow card. You can do whatever you want, again, as long as you don't actively show the cards in your hand. There are also no binding agreements. So if somebody says, oh, I'll pass you a yellow card if in 2 tricks from now you pass me a red card, you can agree to that, but you're not forced to that actual binding agreement. And lastly, players must always follow suit, even if you lied about not having a suit. So if the kiwi player said, oh, I don't have red cards, but then the hedgehog player plays red, and the kiwi actually has a red card in their hand, they must play it during trick play. Again, there's just table talk however you want, but still follow the rules of trick taking. After the trick is resolved and any pokes have taken place are also resolved, the player that won the trick will lead the next trick. So the hedgehog player, looking at their hand, maybe they decide to play that 13 yellow. Again, must follow, so everyone else is looking for yellow cards to play. And we come over here, and they'll play the 6. And let's have the last player. They will play the 8 yellow. So now we look again for the highest suit and the highest number in that suit, where there's all 4 yellow cards. So the hedgehog player is going to win again. Now normally they would move their piece 1 space forward. However, anytime there are 2 or more 8s in a trick, the player that wins the trick will actually move 2 spaces instead of 1. So the hedgehog will go 1, 2. Now you can sort of tell on the 8s, there's the thin border around the card. There are 2 lines on the 8s versus the regular cards that only have 1 line. And that's a way to remember that 8s cause double movement. And I will just reiterate, it doesn't matter if there's 2 or more 8s in the trick, as long as there is an 8. So if a second 8 was in here, hedgehog would only move 2 spaces. They don't move 4 or anything else. These cards would then clear again, and the hedgehog player would lead again. Just reiterating as well on the board, this center space is the same space for being on top or underneath. So this hedgehog has moved around and is going this way now. If the train player moves 2 spaces, they would be facing in the different direction than the hedgehog player, but they are considered to be in the same space. Even though the hedgehog is going underneath the tunnel and the train is going over it, for any poking and or scoring purposes, they are sharing a space. And in this situation, when there are two or more suits in the same trick, that's when we refer to the suit hierarchy. So let's say in a situation, red was the lead suit, and a player or two didn't have red in their hand, they can play any color they want. In this case, we have a yellow and a blue, so when we check to see who's winning, we need to find out the strongest suit. The card that is the leftmost, that is closest to the strongest card, is the strongest, and the one closest to the weakest is the weakest suit. So in this case, among these three suits, blue is stronger than red and yellow, so the blue 4 would win the trick. Now, trick play would continue like this, with players playing cards, checking to see if any pokes occurred until you've played all 12 tricks, or in the case of a 5-player game, 11 tricks. If at the end of the hand, either of the following conditions are met, the game ends immediately. The first one is having every player on the same space of the board. If this happens, all players win the game. Note you only check for scoring at the end of the hand. If this position happens during the hand and there are still tricks to be played, the game does not end immediately. You only check for this at the end of the hand after all tricks have been played and you're going to scoring. The other condition that can occur is if all players are on different spaces. In this case, all players lose the game. Again, just like the shared victory condition, this shared end condition is only checked at the end of the hand and not during. If neither of these conditions have taken place, players will proceed to scoring. To complete scoring, players need to check where their player piece is relative to other player pieces. For each other player that you are 2 or more spaces away from, you score 0 points. For each player piece that you are directly adjacent to, you will score positive points. And for each piece that is in the same space as yours, you will lose points. The number of points that you gain or lose is equal to the number of the farthest down marked circle in your column for that player. So if we look at the hedgehog player here, they are 1 space away from the other 3 players. And so looking at the rooster, they only have 1 based on the circle that starts filled out for them. So they would score 1 positive point. And the rooster would also be scoring 1 positive point for the hedgehog. Finishing out the hedgehog, going to the kiwi player, they've got 2. So let's see if I can do this upside down. They would write 2 in there. And the kiwi would also come to the hedgehog player and write 2. And then the train for the hedgehog is also a 2. So they would place a 2. And the train player would write for a hedgehog 2 as well. Scoring up that hand, 2 plus 2 plus 1 is 5. So they get 5, ooh, that is really bad, 5 total points for round 1. The rooster player is 2 spaces away from the other 2, so they will not be scoring anything, so their total for the round is 1. And then finishing out the other 2 players, let's go with the kiwi. They've got the 2. They are in the same space as the train, so they will actually be losing 4 points. So minus 4. Ooh, upside down is really tough for that. And then they are 2 away from the rooster, so they won't score anything there. So 2 minus 4 is going to be negative 2 for their score. And the train is also going to get the negative 4 for them, which is the same of negative 2. When starting a new hand, players will keep their pieces on the exact space that they were on the board, continuing to face the same direction as well. The suit ranking cards do not get re-randomized. They will stay in the order they were at the end of the round. And you will shuffle up the main playing card deck, deal 12 cards to each player, 11 in a 5-player game. And as mentioned earlier, players will discard 1 card from their hand face down. They will not reveal this card and they will not move any spaces. That was only done during the initial setup of the game. The game is played over 3 rounds and the player with the most points at the end of the 3 rounds wins. Unless, of course, the game ends early due to one of the early endgame conditions. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play the Hedgehog's Dilemma. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching.